You're seriously wearing that shirt for him? Mason's voice came from the hallway, and I froze with one hand still on my bedroom door. I should have ignored him. That would have been the mature thing to do. But I turned around anyway, because apparently I hated peace. Mason Reed was leaning against the wall outside our tiny bathroom like he lived there, arms crossed, hair still damp from the shower, looking way too comfortable for someone who had just insulted my outfit 5 minutes before my date. What's wrong with my shirt? I looked down at it. Dark green button-up. Clean. Normal. Maybe a little tight in the shoulders, but not in a tragic way. Mason tilted his head, eyes dragging over me just long enough to make my stomach do something stupid. Nothing. It just makes you look like you're trying to prove you have hobbies. I stared at him. That doesn't even mean anything. It means he's going to know you spent 20 minutes choosing it. Heat climbed up my neck before I could stop it. Why are you watching how long I take to get dressed? That should have shut him up. It didn't. Mason smiled like he'd been waiting for that. Because the bathroom mirror is fogged up with your anxiety. I grabbed my keys off the counter. You're annoying. I've been told. That was Mason. Always joking. Always leaning in just enough to make you react. Then stepping back like you were the weird one for noticing. We'd been roommates for almost a year, and most days we worked fine. He did night shifts at a bar 3 blocks over. I worked mornings at a coffee shop and took design classes online. Our schedules barely matched, which should have made things easy. Except somehow, Mason had a talent for showing up at the worst possible moments. Especially when I had a date. The first time, I thought it was random. I was meeting a guy named Oliver for coffee, and right before I left, Mason asked if I could help him move the couch because he'd lost something important under it. It was a bottle cap. A bottle cap. I missed my train and showed up 15 minutes late. Oliver spent the whole date checking his watch. The second time, Mason knocked over his iced coffee right onto my jeans. He swore it was an accident, but he didn't look sorry until I got quiet. The third time, he stood in the kitchen eating cereal while I fixed my hair and casually said, "That guy has serial killer eyebrows." I had shown him one picture. One. And now this. Where are you going again? Mason pushed off the wall, following me toward the living room. Out. That's specific. It's supposed to be. His eyebrows lifted. Secret date. Nice. I stopped near the door. My chest tightened, which made no sense, because I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was 24. Single. Gay. Allowed to have a life that didn't involve arguing with my roommate about laundry detergent and whose turn it was to buy trash bags. Why do you care? The question came out sharper than I meant. Mason's face changed for half a second. Barely. But I saw it. His smile didn't disappear exactly. It just lost something. I don't. He reached past me for his jacket on the hook, close enough that his arm brushed mine. Not a big deal. Nothing. Just fabric. Just skin for a second. Still, my body noticed before my brain could tell it not to. Just don't come home crying when he talks about crypto for 2 hours. His name is Caleb. The second I said it, I regretted it. Mason went still. Caleb. Yes. He sounds like he owns boat shoes. I opened the door. Good night, Mason. Text me when you're heading back. I paused with one foot in the hallway. Why? His eyes flicked to mine. For once, no joke came right away. The apartment felt too quiet behind him. The old fridge hummed. Somewhere downstairs, a dog barked. Mason shoved his hands into his hoodie pocket and shrugged. Because you always forget your pepper spray. I almost laughed, but it got stuck somewhere in my throat. He remembered that. Of course he did. Mason remembered stupid things. My coffee order. The cereal I liked. The fact that I hated walking home alone after midnight, but pretended I didn't. It probably meant nothing. That was what I told myself while stepping into the hall. It meant nothing. He was just nosy. Protective in a weird roommate way. Annoying because that was his default setting. I was halfway to the stairs when he called my name. Ethan. I turned back. Mason stood in the doorway, one hand still on the frame, looking at me like he wanted to say something else and hated himself for it. His gaze dropped to my shirt again, then back to my face. Softer this time. You look fine. My heart did a hard, embarrassing thump. Fine. One corner of his mouth lifted. Don't let it go to your head. I rolled my eyes and left before he could see me smile. But as I walked down the stairs, keys tight in my hand, I couldn't shake the feeling that Mason wasn't just ruining my dates. He was making sure I thought about him during every single one. I made it 2 blocks before I checked my phone. That was the embarrassing part. I had barely left the apartment, barely passed the corner deli with the flickering sign, and my thumb was already hovering over Mason's name like he had asked me to report for duty. I hated that. I hated that one tiny "text me when you're heading back" had crawled under my skin and stayed there. So I locked my phone, shoved it into my jacket pocket, and kept walking toward the train like a normal person with a normal date and a normal roommate who did not make my chest feel weird in hallways. Caleb picked a small bar downtown, the kind with exposed brick, Edison bulbs, and menus that made every cocktail sound like a divorced poet. He was already there when I arrived, sitting near the window in a navy sweater, smiling like his profile pictures had not lied. That should have been a good sign. "Ethan," he stood up. Hey. We did the awkward first date half hug, the one where both people commit just enough to make it uncomfortable. Caleb smelled like clean laundry and expensive soap. Nice. Safe. Completely fine. "You look great," he offered, pulling out my chair a little. I laughed because my brain immediately replayed Mason's voice. "That shirt makes you look like you're trying to prove you have hobbies." "Thanks." I almost changed. "Do not. Green works on you." That was a normal compliment. A good compliment. The kind I was supposed to enjoy. But all I could think was that Mason had looked at me longer than Caleb did, which was insane. I sat down and tried to be present. Caleb asked about my design classes. I asked about his job at a nonprofit. He was easy to talk to, maybe even too easy. No weird pauses. No teasing that made me want to throw a pillow at his face. No annoying little smirk from across the kitchen. Just a decent guy being decent. Then he asked, "So, you live alone?" I should have said no and moved on. Instead, because apparently I was determined to sabotage myself, I said, "No, I have a roommate." "Mason." Caleb smiled over his drink. "Good roommate or Craigslist mistake?" I laughed. "Depends on the day." "That bad?" "No. He is just—" I stopped, because the word that came to mind was not annoying. It was complicated, and that was not a word you used about your roommate on a first date. "He works nights. Bartender. Thinks he is funnier than he is." Caleb grinned. "Sounds charming. He would love that you said that." My phone buzzed against my thigh. I knew before I looked. I just knew. "Mason, you alive?" I stared at those two words like an idiot. Caleb was talking about a hiking trip with his friends, but his voice blurred at the edges. My stomach tightened, not with fear, with something worse. Relief. I hated that too. I typed, still deciding. 3 dots appeared almost instantly. "Mason, if he ordered an old-fashioned, leave." I bit my lip so I would not smile. Caleb glanced down at his own glass. "An old-fashioned? Of course. Everything okay?" My phone felt hot in my hand. "Yeah. Sorry, roommate." Caleb's eyebrows lifted, playful but curious. "Checking up on you?" He does that. "Protective." I opened my mouth, then closed it. Protective was too simple. Mason was protective when I walked home late. Annoying when I got dressed up. Quiet when I came back disappointed. Careful in ways that made no sense. Something like that. Caleb leaned forward, elbows on the table. Is that a problem? It should have been an easy no. Instead, I looked out the window at the reflection of myself in the glass. Green shirt, nervous eyes, phone still in my hand. I do not know. The date kept going after that, but I was only halfway there. Caleb was nice. He laughed at the right times. He asked good questions. When his knee brushed mine under the small table, I did not feel much. When my phone buzzed again, I felt everything. "Mason, pepper spray?" I swallowed. "Me, in my pocket." "Mason, good." Another message came in before I could put the phone away. "Mason, and for the record, the shirt is better than fine." My chest went tight so fast I forgot how to breathe. I read it once. Then again. Caleb's voice softened across from me. "That is him, right?" I looked up too quickly. "What?" He gave me a small smile, not unkind. "Your face changes when he texts you." For a second, the whole bar felt too loud and too quiet at the same time. I forced a laugh. "No, it does not." Caleb did not argue. He just took a sip of his old-fashioned, watching me over the rim like he already knew something I did not. And the worst part was, maybe he did. I knew the date was over the second Caleb walked me to the train and said, "You should probably figure that out." He was not mad. That somehow made it worse. He smiled, polite and tired, like he had just watched me spend 2 hours pretending not to wait for another guy's name to light up my phone. Figure what out? I tried, because apparently I had one last lie left in me. Caleb gave me a look. Not harsh, just honest. "Ethan." That was all. My name, said gently enough to make my stomach drop. I looked down at the sidewalk. The downtown air was cold, and people kept moving around us, laughing, smoking, calling rides, living normal lives where their roommates did not ruin their ability to flirt. Caleb tucked his hands into his coat pockets. You are nice. Really nice. But every time your phone buzzed, you left the room. My throat went dry. I am sorry. Do not be. Just maybe do not go on dates while you are emotionally sitting on your own couch with someone else. I should have laughed. I almost did. Instead, I stood there feeling like someone had pulled a curtain back in front of me. Caleb leaned in for a quick hug, friendly and clean, then disappeared down the stairs to the other train line. I stayed outside for a minute, phone in my hand, staring at Mason's last message. The shirt is better than fine. I did not text back. I could not. On the ride home, I told myself Caleb was wrong. He did not know me. He did not know Mason. He did not know that Mason joked about everything, that he had a big mouth and terrible timing, that checking on me was probably just his weird roommate habit. It meant nothing. It had to mean nothing. But then I got home, and Mason was awake. Of course he was. The living room lamp was on, low and yellow, and the television was playing some old basketball game nobody was watching. Mason sat on the couch in sweats and a faded Cubs hoodie, one arm stretched along the back cushion. He looked up the second I opened the door. Not surprised. Waiting. My chest tightened before either of us spoke. That was fast. His voice was casual, but his eyes moved over my face like he was checking for damage. It was 2 hours. Fast for a date. I kicked off my shoes harder than necessary. Were you timing me? No, a beat. Maybe a little. I laughed once, but it came out sharp. Mason's expression shifted. Bad. I dropped my keys into the bowl by the door. They clattered too loud. No. Caleb was great. Mason went quiet. Just quiet. No joke about boat shoes. No comment about old fashions. His fingers curled slightly against the couch cushion, then relaxed. I saw it because I was looking. Because I was always looking, apparently. Great, he repeated. Yeah. I walked past him toward the kitchen, needing water, space, anything. Mason followed after a second. Not close. Close enough. I opened the fridge and stared at absolutely nothing. So, second date? The question landed too carefully. I turned, bottle of water in hand. Why? Mason leaned against the counter. The kitchen was small, barely enough room for both of us without shoulders brushing. He crossed his arms, then uncrossed them like he did not know where to put himself. Just asking. You never just ask. His jaw moved. Fine. I wanted to know. Why? The room went still. Mason looked at me, and for once his face did not know what joke to wear. His eyes dropped to my mouth for half a second, maybe less, then snapped back up. My heart started pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. Because you looked weird when you left. Weird how? Like you were trying to convince yourself. I swallowed. Of what? He stepped closer to reach past me for a glass from the cabinet. He could have waited. He did not. His arm brushed mine, warm through my sleeve, and neither of us moved right away. The fridge hummed behind me. His shoulder was inches from my chest. I could smell his soap, faint beer from the bar, the detergent we always argued about buying. Mason's hand stayed on the cabinet handle too long. That you wanted to go, he said quietly. It hit too close. Way too close. I turned my head, and suddenly his face was right there. Not touching. Not doing anything wrong. Just close enough that one wrong breath could change the whole night. I whispered, do not do that. His eyes searched mine. Do what? Act like you know me better than everyone else. For a second, he looked almost hurt. Then he stepped back, and the air rushed in between us like I had been underwater. Maybe I do. There it was. The kind of sentence Mason could have laughed off if he wanted. But he did not laugh. Neither did I. I waited for him to say he was kidding. To smirk. To ruin it. He just looked at me, quiet and tense, like he had finally said something too real and did not know how to take it back. And that was the first time I could not lie to myself anymore. Mason was not just messing with my dates. Something was happening in our apartment, in our kitchen, between the 2 feet of space we kept pretending was enough. Maybe you do, I said, and I hated how small my voice sounded in the kitchen. Mason did not move. He stood there with one hand still on the counter, shoulders tense, eyes locked on mine like he was trying to decide whether to run or step closer. For once, he looked less like the guy who always had a comeback and more like someone who had accidentally walked into his own feelings with the lights on. Ethan. My name came out low. Careful. That made it worse. Do not say my name like that. His brow pulled together. Like what? Like you are about to say something, and then make me feel stupid for hearing it. That hit him. I saw it land. His mouth opened, then closed again, and the silence that followed stretched so long I could hear traffic passing outside our building. Somewhere in the apartment above us, someone dropped something heavy and cursed. Neither of us laughed. Mason looked down at the floor, dragged a hand through his hair, then let out a breath that sounded almost frustrated. I was not going to make you feel stupid. You keep doing it anyway. His eyes came back to mine. I know. 2 words. No joke. No defense. My chest tightened. I should have walked away then. I should have gone to my room, shut the door, pretended we were just having another weird roommate argument that would dissolve by morning. Instead, I stayed there with my back against the fridge, water bottle forgotten in my hand, while Mason stood close enough that the whole kitchen felt smaller than usual. Why did you text me all night? I asked. Mason blinked once. Because I wanted to know you were safe. You texted me about his drink. That was safety related. Mason. His jaw flexed. There it was again. That pause. That almost. Fine. He looked away toward the sink like the dirty coffee mugs were suddenly fascinating. I did not like him. You did not meet him. I saw enough. You saw one picture. And his old-fashioned. I almost smiled. Almost. But then he looked at me again, and the humor disappeared before it could save either of us. He made you feel bad. My throat tightened. No, he did not. You came home looking like someone apologized to you. I hated that he was right. I hated that he noticed. I hated that Caleb had been kind, and Mason somehow still saw the bruise in it. He said I should figure something out. Mason went still. Figure what out? The honest answer sat between us, bright and dangerous. You. Me. This. Whatever keeps happening when you get too close. I swallowed instead. Nothing. Mason took one step closer. Not much. Just enough that I felt it everywhere. That is not nothing face. Stop reading me. I am not trying to. Then stop being good at it. His expression softened so fast it almost hurt. He reached toward me, then stopped halfway, like he had to ask permission from the air itself. His fingers hovered near my wrist. I could have moved. I did not. When he finally touched me, it was barely anything. 2 fingers against the inside of my wrist, light enough to deny, warm enough to ruin me. My pulse jumped under his hand. Mason felt it. I knew he did, because his eyes dropped to where he was touching me, and his face changed. You are nervous, he murmured. You are standing too close. Do you want me to move? That question should have been simple. Yes or no. Safe or dangerous. Roommate or something else. But my mouth would not work, because the truth was too embarrassing. I did not want him to move. I wanted him to stay exactly there, and also get out of my kitchen before I forgot every rule I had ever made for myself. Mason's thumb shifted once against my wrist. Not a stroke. Not really. Just a tiny movement that made my stomach drop anyway. Ethan, he said again, quieter. This time I did not tell him to stop. His eyes held mine, then flicked lower for the shortest second. My breath caught. He saw that too. Of course he did. For one insane moment, I thought he was going to lean in. And maybe he did. Maybe we both did. The space between us got smaller, or maybe the room just stopped making sense. His hand tightened around my wrist, not hard, just present, like he was asking me to stay without saying it out loud. Then my phone buzzed on the counter. Loud. Sharp. Stupid. We both flinched like we had been caught. Mason dropped my wrist immediately and stepped back so fast his hip hit the cabinet. My skin felt cold where his hand had been. I grabbed the phone because I needed something to do. Caleb's name lit up the screen. Great meeting you tonight. Take care of yourself, Ethan. Mason saw it. I watched him see it. Whatever had been open in his face shut halfway. He nodded once, like he had just remembered his place. You should text him back. Mason. But he was already moving toward the living room. It is late. I have work tomorrow. He did not have work tomorrow. I knew his schedule. He knew I knew. Still, he picked up the remote, turned the television volume up, and pretended the almost did not happen. I stood in the kitchen with Caleb's message in my hand and Mason's touch still burning on my wrist, realizing the worst part was not that he had almost crossed a line. It was that I had almost let him. By morning, Mason was acting normal in the most unnatural way possible. He made coffee. He burned toast. He complained about the downstairs neighbor playing music at 7 in the morning. He did everything except look at my wrist, which somehow made me feel like my wrist was glowing. I sat at the kitchen table, pretending to scroll through emails, while he moved around the room like last night had not happened. Like his fingers had not rested on my pulse. Like he had not almost leaned in. Like I had not stood there and let the whole thing happen. You want eggs? Mason opened the fridge without turning around. No, you sure? You have class later. I can feed myself. That is debatable. I looked up. He was trying to joke. I could hear it. But the timing was off, the smile too late, the air between us too careful. Before I could say anything, my phone buzzed. This time it was not Caleb. It was Nora, my friend from work. Brunch today. No excuses. You owe me details. I almost ignored it, but Mason glanced over. Hot date number 2. There was the joke. Sharp enough to hide behind. I locked my phone. Nora. His shoulders relaxed so slightly, I hated myself for noticing. Coffee shop Nora? Yes. The one who threatened to fight a customer with a bagel knife? It was a butter knife. Still terrifying. I stood up too fast, chair scraping the floor. Mason finally looked at me then. Really looked. His eyes dropped to my hand, maybe my wrist, then lifted back to my face. The memory of last night passed between us so clearly I almost heard it. Neither of us said anything. He looked away first. Have fun. It should have sounded simple. It did not. Nora picked a diner near Logan Square, the kind with sticky menus, bottomless coffee, and waitresses who called everybody honey. She was already in a booth when I got there, red hair in a messy bun, sunglasses on her head, even though it was cloudy. The second I slid into the seat, she pointed at me with a fry. You look haunted. Good morning to you too. No, she narrowed her eyes. That is not bad date haunted. That is roommate haunted. My stomach dropped. Can we not? Absolutely not. I have been waiting months for you to admit something weird is going on with Mason. I grabbed the menu even though I knew what I wanted. Nothing is going on. Nora leaned back, unimpressed. Ethan, that man came into the coffee shop last week to bring you your forgotten charger. That is normal. He knew which outlet you like because the corner table has less glare. I opened my mouth. Closed it. She kept going. He also stared at the guy who asked for your number like the guy had personally poisoned Lake Michigan. Heat climbed up my neck. He is just protective. Protective is walking someone to their car. Mason looks at men near you like he is deciding where to hide the body. I nearly choked on my water. Do not say that in public. Nora smiled, but then her face softened. Seriously though? Is he making you uncomfortable? That slowed me down. Because the easy answer was supposed to be yes. He ruined dates. Made comments. Showed up in my head when he had no right to be there. But uncomfortable was not the word. Not exactly. I do not know what he is doing. Nora studied me. And what are you doing? I looked down at my hands. Last night flashed again. Mason's fingers on my wrist. His voice asking if I wanted him to move. The fact that I could not say yes. I think I am being stupid. That was not the question. I hated how gently she said it. I pushed my coffee cup in a tiny circle. Caleb said my face changes when Mason texts me. Nora's eyebrows lifted, but she did not tease. Not right away. Does it? I looked toward the window, watching people pass with paper cups and grocery bags. Everybody busy with their own problems. Maybe. My phone buzzed on the table. Mason, Nora carrying a weapon today, or are you safe? I stared at it too long. Nora leaned over before I could stop her. Her mouth fell open. Oh my God. I snatched the phone. Do not. He is checking on you during brunch with me? He knows you are violent. Ethan. Her voice went flat. Honey. I hated that too. I hated how obvious it sounded when someone else saw it. I typed back, she has a fork. Send help. Mason replied almost instantly. I am 5 minutes away. Do not tempt me. My chest tightened. I smiled before I could stop myself. Nora saw it. Of course she saw it. Her expression shifted from amused to something more serious. You know this is going to hurt if neither of you says anything, right? I did not answer. Because across the diner window, just outside on the sidewalk, a familiar figure stopped near the curb with a paper bag in one hand. Mason. He had not come for me. Not exactly. The bar he worked at was 2 streets over. There were 100 reasons he could be nearby. But then he looked through the glass and found me immediately. His eyes moved from me to Nora, then back to me. Nora turned slowly, followed my stare, and whispered, "That is not a roommate look." Mason lifted the paper bag a little, like an awkward greeting, then gave me a small smile. I should have waved. I should have rolled my eyes. Instead, I sat there frozen while my heart kicked hard against my ribs. Because Nora was right. Someone else had seen it now. And once someone else saw it, I could not keep pretending it was only in my head. Mason left before I could decide what to do with my face. 1 second, he was outside the diner window with a paper bag in his hand and that small, careful smile. The next, he looked down at his phone like he had suddenly remembered how sidewalks worked, then kept walking. Nora watched him go, then turned back to me slowly. You are in trouble. I sank lower in the booth. Please stop narrating my life. I am not narrating. I am witnessing. Great. Can you witness quietly? She stole one of my fries. No. I tried to laugh, but my chest still felt tight from the way Mason had looked at me through the glass. Not casual. Not roommate. Not nothing. After brunch, I told Nora I was going home to catch up on homework. She gave me a look like she did not believe me for 1 second, but she hugged me anyway. Do not let him keep you in emotional Wi-Fi range forever, she murmured against my shoulder. That is not a thing. It is absolutely a thing, and you are connected full bars. I rolled my eyes, but her words followed me all the way back to the apartment. Emotional Wi-Fi range. Stupid. Accurate. Annoying. Mason was in the kitchen when I got home, sleeves pushed up, rinsing a mug under the sink. The paper bag from earlier sat on the counter. You stalking diners now? I dropped my keys into the bowl by the door. He did not turn around right away. You caught me. Very elaborate plan. Walked past a public window in broad daylight. With a bag. That is how criminals do it. I stepped closer, careful, like the kitchen had become some kind of trap. What is in the bag? Mason shut off the faucet and finally looked at me. His eyes moved over my face, quick but too focused. Blueberry muffin. My stomach did something small and stupid. From Benny's? They had one left. That place is 20 minutes out of your way. He shrugged, but it was too late. I knew his fake shrug. I had lived with it for almost a year. I was nearby. You were 2 streets over. That is nearby. Mason. His hand tightened around the edge of the sink. There was that pause again. The one where he decided which version of himself to give me. The funny one. The careless one. The one that could survive pretending. Then he looked at the paper bag instead of me. You mentioned you liked them last month. I stared at him. I mentioned it once. Yeah. He tried to smile. It barely worked. I have ears. The apartment went quiet. Not awkward exactly. Heavy. Like both of us were standing on the same thin floorboard, waiting to see if it cracked. I walked to the counter and opened the bag because I needed something to do with my hands. The muffin was still warm. Of course it was. You cannot keep doing things like this, I said quietly. Mason's face changed. Buying muffins. Acting like you do not care, and then remembering things nobody else remembers. His mouth parted a little, but no words came out. I hated how nervous I felt. Hated how my pulse picked up just because he stopped joking. Nora saw you. His eyes flicked up. Yeah, I figured. She said something. About me? About us. That word landed hard. Us. I had not meant to say it like that, but there it was, sitting between the sink and the stove like a third person in the room. Mason looked away first, jaw working. There is no us. It should have made things easier. It should have cleared the air. Instead, it hurt in this sharp, embarrassing way. I nodded once and reached for the muffin bag. Right. I barely made it 2 steps before he moved. Ethan. I stopped, but I did not turn around. If I turned around too fast, he would see it on my face. I did not mean it like that. A laugh pushed out of me, low and not funny. How else could you mean it? The floor creaked behind me. He was closer now. Not touching. Just there. I meant there should not be. My fingers tightened around the paper bag. That is worse. I know. His voice dropped, rougher than usual. I know it is worse. I turned then. Big mistake. Mason looked wrecked in the quietest way. Not dramatic. Not crying. Just stripped of all the little shields he usually wore. I keep trying to act normal, he admitted. And then you leave for a date, or you smile at your phone, or someone looks at you like they get to know you, and he stopped, dragged a hand over his mouth, frustrated with himself. My heart was pounding now. You just what? His eyes met mine. No smirk. No escape. I do not want to go back to how it was before. The words hit me so hard I forgot the muffin in my hand. Before what? Mason swallowed. His gaze dropped to my wrist, the same wrist he had touched the night before. Before I knew what your pulse felt like when I was close. My breath caught. There it was. Real. Too real to laugh off. Too direct to bury under sarcasm. Mason, I know. He stepped back like he was forcing himself to give me space. I know I have been unfair. I know I keep acting like I have some right to care who you date, and I do not. I know that. His voice softened. But I was not joking last night. The room went still around us. My chest tightened so hard it almost hurt. About what? He looked at me like the answer scared him. When I asked if you wanted me to move, I could not speak. Not at first. Because the truth was right there again. The same truth from last night, waiting for me to be brave enough to touch it. Mason gave a small, shaky laugh, but there was no humor in it. You did not say yes. My mouth went dry. You did not move either. His eyes held mine. I know. For a second, neither of us moved. The bag crinkled in my hand. The sink dripped once behind him. Everything ordinary in the apartment suddenly felt charged, like the walls had been listening this whole time. Then my phone buzzed on the counter. Nora, probably. Or Caleb. Or the outside world trying to shove its way back in. Neither of us looked. Mason's voice came barely above a whisper. Tell me to stop caring, and I will try. I stared at him, heart racing, throat tight. Every excuse I had left falling apart one by one. That is the problem. His eyebrows pulled together. What is? I took one step closer before I could talk myself out of it. I do not think I want you to stop. The second I said it, Mason looked like he had been handed something breakable. Not happy. Not relieved. Scared. That was the part that made my stomach twist. I expected him to step closer. Maybe smile. Maybe make one of those stupid jokes that always saved him when things got too real. Instead, he looked down at the floor between us and took a breath that sounded careful. Too careful. Ethan. My name again. Softer this time. Worse. I felt the floor drop a little under me. Do not do that. His eyes lifted. Do what? Say my name like you are about to apologize. He flinched, just barely. That told me enough before he even opened his mouth. I am not apologizing for caring. But Mason rubbed both hands over his face, then backed up until his hip hit the counter. Like he needed distance to think. Like I had become something dangerous in our own kitchen. But this is not simple. I let out a short laugh, because if I did not, my voice was going to shake. No kidding. We live together. I noticed. I mean it. His eyes moved around the apartment, the cereal box on top of the fridge, his work shoes by the door, my hoodie thrown over the couch. Our whole stupid routine laid out in plain sight. If this goes wrong, it does not just go wrong. It ruins everything. The words hit harder than I wanted them to. Because he was not lying. That was the worst part. This was not some guy from a bar I could block after a bad date. This was Mason. The person who knew I hated cilantro. The person who bought blueberry muffins because I mentioned them once. The person whose laugh I could recognize through a closed door. So what? I folded my arms, trying to look less hurt than I felt. We pretend this did not happen. Mason did not answer fast enough. That silence did something ugly to my chest. Wow. I nodded, stepping back. Okay. No, that is not what I am saying. It kind of sounds exactly like what you were saying. He moved toward me, then stopped when I stepped away. His face tightened. I am trying not to be selfish. You ruined 3 of my dates, Mason. The words came out sharper than I planned. His mouth closed. You are a little late. That landed. I saw it. For a second, he looked like he wanted me to keep yelling because at least that would make sense. But I was tired. Tired of almost. Tired of reading pauses. Tired of wanting him and then feeling stupid for it. My phone buzzed again on the counter. This time I grabbed it just to stop feeling trapped. Nora, you alive? Need extraction? I stared at the message and almost laughed, but my eyes burned instead. Mason glanced at the screen, then looked away like he had no right to see it. You should answer her. Do not. My voice cracked a little. I hated that too. Do not act like you are stepping aside for my own good when you are the one who made me stand here. He swallowed. I know. Then say something real. The apartment went quiet. His face shifted, like the real thing was right there, and he was holding it behind his teeth. Then his phone rang. Loud. Sudden. His eyes flicked down. The name on the screen was Tyler, one of the guys from his bar. Mason ignored it. It rang again. Then a text popped up that I saw by accident because it lit the whole screen. You coming in tonight? Ryan is short again. Mason grabbed the phone and turned it over. Too late. My stomach sank. You said you did not have work. I was not scheduled. But you are going. He hesitated. That was answer enough. I laughed once, quiet and miserable. Right? Of course. Ethan, it is not like that. No, It is exactly like that. Things get real, and you run to work. I am not running. But he was already picking up his keys from the counter. Not fully. Not leaving yet. Just holding them. Like a decision he hated. They need help. And you need an excuse. His jaw clenched. He looked at me then. Really looked. And for 1 second I thought he might throw the keys back down. I wanted him to. I wanted it so badly it made me angry. But he only closed his hand around them. I do not know how to do this without hurting you. You already are. That stopped him cold. The words hung there between us, too honest to take back. Mason's face went pale in a way I had never seen. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I nodded because if I stayed another second, I was going to ask him to choose me, and I could not survive hearing him fail at that. Go to work, Mason. He did not move. Ethan, please. That did it. He looked down, nodded once, and walked to the door. His hand stayed on the knob for a second too long. I thought he might turn around. I thought he might finally stop pretending that leaving was safer. But the door opened, then closed softly behind him. Not a slam. Somehow worse. I stood in the middle of the kitchen with the warm muffin still on the counter, untouched, and my phone buzzing in my hand. Nora called this time. I answered because I needed someone to say something that did not sound like Mason. Hey, she said, voice instantly gentler. What happened? I looked at the door. My wrist still remembered his hand. My chest still remembered his almost. I think he regrets it. The silence on the other end was small but heavy. Do you believe that? I wanted to say yes. It would have made things cleaner. Easier. But the truth sat in my throat like a stone. No, I whispered. I think he is scared. And that was worse, because fear could look exactly like leaving if you did not know how to stay. For 3 hours, I tried to hate him. I washed the same coffee mug twice. I opened my laptop and stared at a blank design file until the screen dimmed. I threw the blueberry muffin away, then took it out of the trash because it was still in the paper bag and apparently I had no dignity left. Around midnight, rain started tapping against the kitchen window. Not dramatic rain, just enough to make the apartment feel smaller. Mason still was not home. I told myself that was fine. Good, actually. Space was healthy. Space was mature. Space was exactly what people needed when their roommate almost became something else and then ran away with his keys in his hand. Then the front door opened. I looked up from the couch before I could pretend not to. Mason stepped inside quietly, hoodie damp, hair messy from the weather, eyes tired in a way that made my anger stumble for half a second. He stopped when he saw me awake. Hey, that was it. Hey, like we were normal. Like he had not walked out while my chest was still open. I put my phone face down on the coffee table. Do not. His hand froze on the zipper of his jacket. Do not what? Do not come in here and say hey like nothing happened. The apartment went silent except for the rain and the old radiator clicking near the window. Mason looked down at his shoes, then nodded once. Slow. Okay. I waited for more. A joke. An excuse. Some version of him that would make it easier to be mad. He did not give me one. He took off his jacket, hung it by the door, then stood there with both hands empty at his sides. I left. Yeah, I noticed. I should not have. My throat tightened, stupid and fast. I looked away because his face was too honest, and I did not trust myself with it yet. Why did you? He crossed the room, but stopped near the armchair, leaving space between us. Too much space. Respectful space. Coward space. I hated all of it. Because Tyler called, and it was easier to answer that than answer you. The truth landed quietly. No speech. No perfect line. Just that. I rubbed my palms against my sweatpants. So I was right. Mason's jaw worked. You were not wrong. That is not the same thing. I know. He sat on the edge of the armchair, elbows on his knees, hands clasped together like he was trying to keep himself still. I got to the bar and stood in the back for 10 minutes. Did not even clock in. I looked at him then. What? His mouth twitched, but not into a smile. Tyler looked at me and said, Man, you look like you just broke up with someone you were not dating. Despite everything, a tiny sound escaped me. Not a laugh. Almost. Mason heard it, and his shoulders dropped a little. Then he told me to go home before I made the customers depressed. I stared at him. You came back because Tyler bullied you? I came back because he was right. The room shifted. My pulse changed. Mason looked at his hands, then back at me. And because I hated leaving you like that, I wanted to stay angry. I really did. But there was something about him sitting there soaked from rain, looking more scared of me than of anything else, that made it hard. You made me feel stupid, I whispered. His face tightened. I know. I stood there after you left and thought I imagined all of it. You did not. The answer came fast. Too fast. My chest pulled tight. Mason stood, then stopped himself like he was afraid moving too close would ruin the fragile thing between us. You did not imagine it, Ethan. I swallowed. Then say it. His eyes held mine. Rain tapped harder against the glass. Somewhere outside, a car rolled through a puddle. Mason's hands curled once, then relaxed. I was jealous. My breath caught, even though I already knew. Hearing it out loud was different. Of Caleb. Yes. Of Ryan. His eyes narrowed slightly, pained. Especially Ryan. Of anyone. A pause. Then, quieter, yeah. I looked down at the floor between us. Why? Mason took a breath. Let it out. Because every time you left dressed up for someone else, I felt like I was watching something I wanted but never had the guts to ask for. My fingers tightened around the edge of the couch cushion. You could have said that. I did not know how. So you ruined my dates instead? Shame crossed his face. Real shame. Yeah. He rubbed a hand over his mouth. And that was not fair. I know it was not. I kept telling myself I was protecting you from guys who were not good enough. But that was not the whole truth. What was the whole truth? Mason finally stepped closer. Just one step. Still careful. Still letting me decide if he got more. I did not want them to get what I wanted. My heart hit hard once. Then again. I looked at him, and for a second neither of us moved. No joke came to save us. No phone buzzed. No Caleb. No Nora. No work call. Just Mason and me in the living room we had shared for almost a year, pretending the couch and the coffee table and the laundry basket by the hall had not been witnesses the whole time. And what do you want? My voice barely worked. Mason looked terrified, but he did not look away. You. The word was simple. Too simple for how much it changed. My throat burned. I stood up slowly, and his eyes followed every inch like he was afraid I might leave. I did not. I stopped in front of him, close enough to see rain caught in his eyelashes. You cannot keep running every time it gets real. I know. And you cannot act like my boyfriend only when you are jealous. His mouth pulled tight. I know. And if this ruins everything, my voice cracked before I could stop it. Mason's expression broke a little. He lifted his hand, stopped, waited. This time, I closed the space and put my fingers around his wrist first. His pulse jumped under my thumb. Fast. Nervous. Real. If this ruins everything, I finished. I am going to be so mad at you. Mason let out a shaky breath that almost sounded like a laugh. Fair. His hand turned under mine until our palms touched. Not dramatic. Not perfect. Just warm and careful and long overdue. I do not want to ruin it, he murmured. Then do not. He looked at me for a long second. I am scared. Me too. His fingers slid between mine, slow enough that I could stop him. I did not. The room went quiet again, but this time it was not empty. It was full of everything we had finally stopped pretending not to know. We stood there holding hands in the middle of our living room like two people who had no idea what came next. Honestly, we did not. Mason kept looking down at our joined hands like he expected me to change my mind. I kept waiting for him to make a joke because that was what he did when the air got too honest. But he did not. He just held on. Careful. Warm. A little shaky. So, I whispered, because the silence was starting to make my heart act stupid again. Are we going to stand here all night? Mason's mouth twitched. I can. My legs are strong. I rolled my eyes, and this time, the laugh came easy. Small but real. His thumb moved once against the back of my hand, like he was testing whether he was allowed to do that now. I did not pull away. That seemed to answer something for both of us. We ended up on the couch, shoulder to shoulder, our hands still between us on the cushion. Not tangled in some perfect movie way. Just there. Present. A choice neither of us took back. The television was off. The rain kept tapping at the window. Our apartment looked exactly the same as it always did. The crooked lamp. The coffee table with one leg we needed to fix. Mason's work shoes by the door. My hoodie hanging off the chair. Nothing had changed, except everything had. I am sorry, Mason murmured after a while. I looked over. For which part? Fair. He stared at our hands. For making you feel like your happiness was something I got to interrupt. That one landed quietly. I let it sit there because it deserved to. I liked Caleb, I admitted. Mason's fingers went still. Oh, not like that. His shoulders relaxed by maybe 1 inch. which should not have been funny, but it was. He was nice. He also saw through me in under 2 hours, so that was humiliating. Mason winced. I owe him an apology basket. You are not sending Caleb a basket. A small one. No, a muffin. I turned my head and looked at him. Do not bring muffins into this. His smile softened, and for once, he did not hide behind it. I mean it, though. I am sorry. I nodded. I know. Then, because it felt important, I added, and I am not going to stop having a life just because you finally figured yourself out. Mason nodded immediately. Good. And if I say something bothers me, you listen. Yeah. And no more ruining dates. He looked at me from the corner of his eye. Does that rule apply if the date is with me? My chest warmed before I could stop it. Depends. Are you planning to ruin it? I was planning to overthink it, show up too early, and pretend I am relaxed. So yes. He laughed under his breath, and the sound settled into me in a way I knew I was going to remember. The next morning did not feel magical. That was probably why I trusted it. Mason still burned the toast. I still complained about the coffee being too strong. He still left cabinet doors open like he was raised in a barn. But when he passed behind my chair, his fingers brushed lightly over my shoulder. Not by accident. Not hidden. Just enough to say, I am here. I looked up at him, and he looked nervous again. So I reached back and caught his hand for 1 second. His whole face changed. That was the first time I understood how small choices could feel bigger than confessions. Later that week, Nora made us meet her at the diner. She claimed it was for pancakes, but the second Mason slid into the booth beside me instead of across from me, her eyebrows went so high they nearly left her face. Interesting seating arrangement. Mason coughed into his coffee. I kicked him lightly under the table before he could panic. Then I put my hand on the seat between us, palm up. I did not make a show of it. I did not look at Nora first. I just waited. Mason looked down, then at me. Then he placed his hand in mine under the table, where nobody had to see unless they were paying attention. Nora was absolutely paying attention. Her smile went soft instead of smug, which somehow made me more embarrassed. About time, she said. Mason looked at me. She is terrifying. I warned you. He squeezed my hand once. Worth it. And that was it. No big speech. No dramatic announcement. Just pancakes, bad coffee, Nora pretending not to grin, and Mason's thumb resting against mine like it belonged there. Looking back, Mason did not ruin every date because he hated seeing me happy. He ruined them because he was scared I would find someone who made me happy before he learned how to be honest. That did not make it okay, but it made it human. And maybe love does not always start with someone saying the perfect thing at the perfect time. Sometimes it starts in a tiny apartment, with burned toast, a warm muffin, a hand that does not let go, and two people finally admitting that normal was never really normal at all.